There once was a town that had been lost to time, sunken in deep to the mud and the grime. Until recently, by will or by luck, the top of a building by a farmer was struck. He called up the experts who rallied with haste to uncover this site. There was no time to waste. They soon dug it up, though of course with much care, and witnessed the town that had always been there. The history and tales in this quaint and little spot. Think of all the questions and the answers that it's got. They've been working away to the best of their skills, and they've noticed some things that should give you the chills. Now if you've been here on this channel a while, you'll know we love monsters, their legends and style. Of course there is one that we cover each year, for upon Christmas time he's bound to appear. And just like so many, as to their creation, for this one's backstory there was no information. But it seems that this town might just be the breaker, the source of the tale of old Merrymaker. There isn't too much that the long years have spared, and what little there is has not greatly fared. The odd scrap of paper with scribbles and writing may just have some insight as to his first sighting. Evidence found from the mortal remains is only a bonus to further our gains. For those ignorant to this fellow's existence, they'll brush this aside with little resistance. But then, as for me, who has set time to study this chap's wicked ways, no matter how bloody, I've followed his tale for many a decade. My interest and wonder has still yet to fade. And now comes the chance to look through his past, establish a history that surely will last. I've gathered as much of the proof as was able, and feel as though I've a grasp on this fable. Now bearing in mind all the proof was a tatter, details may differ in the truth of the matter. But now without any further distraction, let's get along to our festive attraction. Way and back when that the town was alive, a small populace did humbly thrive. Quiet and clear, they tended the land, building their lives with what they had at hand. Farmers and workmen, and those who would trade, plenty hard work that none could evade. Families who sought to stake out their claim, building a future to honour their name. Life from the looks was really quite normal. The run of each day was nothing informal. Although it would seem that much to their grief, there was one little issue that lived near the heath. Somewhere in the woods was the source of their blight, an odd little boy who lived just out of sight. Occasionally, he could be seen around, sneaking and watching on the outskirts of town. The local children who were born here and raised took an interest in him. They were quite amazed. But the parents around did not share in this revel. From what they could tell, this boy was a devil. There's not much to know of his mother and father. His pa may have died, or simply left rather. There are some clues to say his mother was there, but just in what way we're as yet unaware. There's use of past tense to propose she had passed. Accounts and folk tales do seem to contrast. A couple of fragments did seem to suggest that she too had been odd before taking her rest. And so with all this, from the general tone, as to what we can gather, he did live alone. A dark family past for the boy in the wood. It's no wonder the locals feared he was no good. Though as I mentioned before, while the elders did shun, the children of town saw him as quite fun. The hearts and minds of children filled with wonder and such grace, probably the only warmth the boy had within this place. Being brave or foolish souls, as children are no doubt, but sometimes they snuck away to seek the strange boy out. Now, here's where things get interesting, while events are still unclear, but here's the point that I believe: our Merrymaker did appear. So I hope you will not mind if I fill in the gaps, all in poetic verse of course, which I hope you'll meet with snaps. The chilling winter winds did sweep across the land, nipping at the naked skin of each trader, maid and field hand. The freshness of the colder months could be smelled all around, and a great and fluffy snowfall had blanketed the ground. The year was almost over, and Christmas was now near, a time when all can celebrate and raise a cup of cheer. The town had been preparing for the annual festivities. While they were by no means rich, they'd find joy with their activities. All was soon at ready, with excitement on the rise, but this would be a special year, with a quite unique surprise. Early on one morning, and outside of each door, there seemed to be a little gift awaiting on the floor. On each one was a name, written fancifully styled. Further to the town's surprise, they were gifts for every child. But just who could have left these? They hoped to find a sign. Who would go through all this trouble with expenses and design? But it seemed throughout the night there came a fresh cover of snow, so the question who had sent these gifts, for now, they wouldn't know. Not all the townsfolk were content to accept these gifts so fast. Some would keep them locked away until they were comfortable at last. Others would not wait for the donor's name be learned, seeing these as wicked things, on the fire they were burned. There was slight suspicion that revolved around these gifts, causing worried accusations, though there were no major rifts. Most of all the worry did soon and quickly part, as the children who did get their gifts now loved them from the start. Well, with all of that amazement on that snowy winter's day, excited with their newfound gifts, the children were at play. It was a few days now from Christmas, so an early gift was fine, but from then on, as the days did pass, there came an odd decline. A somber, chilling mood had been growing in the young. To see their children so upset, not knowing why, it stung. A number of the parents had concernedly believed perhaps this drop in joy had come from those presents unreceived. Extra toys were quickly made by a trusted local source and given to those few left out, which had their spirits back on course. But not so for the other children. Their mood it did not quell. If only they knew what would come next, they'd have burned all theirs as well. The night of Christmas Eve had started off with ease. A light and steady snowfall carried gently on the breeze. Chimneys were all busy to keep the families warm, spreading well throughout the house and hold them out till dawn. As the evening passed on, the cold it did grow, and challenged the fires that held back the snow. It would be a long night, they all soon would find. Perhaps they felt sleep would bring some peace of mind. It's not easy to say how much time that they had before the peace of the night turned horribly bad. At depth in their rest, and caught unaware, a sharp horrid sound struck right through the air. A series of screams to curdle the blood washed through the town in a hideous flood. Fearing the cause of these ominous cries, some of those now awake made a choice so unwise. They stumbled outside in the cold darkened night, where the frost and the wind did narrow their sight. Straining their eyes, feeling tired and raw, and were chilled to the bone by what they had saw. There in the snow, lying perfectly still, were several corpses from a fresh, bloody kill. The remains were a mess from this savage attack, ripped head to toe and the front to the back. Just what had done this? Some monstrous beast? Those outside gathered up as their fear had increased. The poor frightened people stood looking around for a sign of the culprit or prints on the ground. They soon had a clue that left them baffled and riled. On the wind came a laugh like that of a child. Caught quickly off guard by this laughter abounding, chills ran them through, they did check their surrounding. More and more laughter was filling the air, desperately looking around until finally, there, through the veil of the snow that fell so unsparing, a child up on a roof, crouched over and staring. They could only stare back, fear gripping them through. This was only made worse as more came into view. A sharp, sudden quiet held them all, it would seem, but the silence was shattered by an unholy scream. The children were crawling or leapt from on high, with all shrieking out in that terrible cry. This wild rush of movement had caused the freeze to shatter. Fearing what possessed these young, the people had to scatter. Trudging through the depth of snow, it made their movement slow, but to reach the safety of their homes they knew they had to go. Those who made it back in time did bolt and block their doors, huddled from the monster's grasps who shook them to their cores. Not all outside were lucky, and some did not make it back, their screams of terror carried out as they fought off the attack. Eventually, the screams did stop, for now there was no more, and all of those still left alive sat staring at the door. Quieter and quieter, the whole world seemed to grow. Had they gone, could they get in? The survivors didn't know. A bang did strike upon the doors of the houses now blockaded, though some were safer than others, and their deaths were not evaded. As for those yet still alive, all they could do was pray that soon this cruel attack would stop and those demons go away. This hammering continued. They were still trying to get in and reap upon those hid away a murderous, wrathful sin. Fear had welled up in them, and their hope began to drop. But suddenly, with much surprise, the hammering did stop. Soundless terror held all still. What did this silence mean? Was this the peace that they had sought, or the start of something more obscene? From outside came a reverb, as snow prints made a crunch. Heightened hearing could make out there was a great and many bunch. It took more than a while before people had approved, then finding all the strength they needed to have the barricades removed. Stepping out with caution great, they looked for signs of life, but the dead were all that littered there, much to their relief and strife. There was a little light that marked the rising of the sun. For all the survivors could make out, the terror was now done. Though one of those who lived had written of this blight, and noted something curious that had caught all of their sight. Staring off into the distance as best as any could, they saw a group of many children were all marching to the wood. The people who had lived to tell this truly horrid tale had deemed this town a cursed place and left quickly without fail. So that is what we have now. The plot, it goes much deeper. A great insight as to the life of this Christmas wrecking creeper. I'll add this to his records and keep it locked away. I'll be sure to tell another tale on next year's Christmas Day. But there are some things I wonder that my mind is running through, and since that is my entire being, perhaps I'll put them to you. His actions simply awful, there's none that can deny. And here we sit this fateful day, we're left to ask, but why? Why do you think he did it? Just what was there to gain? To take a time that's meant for cheer and fill it up with pain? Really, what could be his motives? The thought in honest reason that he returns to traumatize this merry festive season. Whatever are his reasons, he might not tell a soul. But what we know for sure is how he plans to reach his goal. Beware the Merrymaker, his cruel and evil ploy. He'll take away the children with every twisted toy. Good day, I'm Jar19 and thank you for listening. So, what did you think of Merrymaker 3? Yes, he has returned for another year. Perhaps you yourself had an encounter with him this Christmas. If so, do let me know, and I'll add it to his file. You'd be doing me, and everyone, but mostly me, a great service. What a year it's been. I hope that despite everything that's happened that you've been able to find some peace, whether through this video, or something far more entertaining. It's so important to take time to yourself, to relax and recharge. I'd also like to say a massive thank you for a huge year for this channel. We've had so many new subscribers and I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. Here's to another year of growth for the channel, as well as good health and fortune for you all. Thank you so much. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you did, then perhaps subscribe, leave a like, and if you're feeling particularly cheeky, maybe even a comment. I do hope that you'll join me again. Stay safe. Sleep well, but remember, here we make monsters.